Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into Kerrymaid's webinar, Catering for Future Generations. We're very glad that you could join us. My name is Jess Lawler, I'm the brand manager for Kerrymaid, and today we'll be discussing hot topics in educational catering, such as the New School Food Plan Alliance, universal infant free school meals, as well as the panellists will be offering tips and advice on how to deliver the best tasting school meals that meet school food regulations and are nutritionally sound or good. So we have a fantastic panel here today, which have a combined over 100 years of industry experience. We have Jeanette Orrey, who has deservedly received an MBE for her services to school food, and has also recently been appointed as co-chair of the New School Food Plan Alliance, and I'm very happy to say is also our Kerrymaid Channel Ambassador for Education. We have Supply Chain Development Coordinator Clare Hadway from the Soil Association Food for Life. We have the immediate past chair of LACA, Carrieanne Bishop. We have the head of commercial services at Surrey County Council and former LACA chair, Beverly Baker. If you want to join into our conversation today, you can tweet us at Kerrymaid Dairy and use the hashtag KerrymaidWebinar. So we only have an hour, so let's get started. There's really a lot of specific regulation around school meals, all of which can seem daunting to school caterers who just want to cook brilliantly for their children. So when it comes to delivering a great tasting menu that will feed future generations, how much comes down to school food regulations and how much is based on previous knowledge and experience? So we'll start off with talking a little bit about the regulation in the industry at the moment. So the new food-based school food standards came out in January 2015. How do you feel these have supported caterers' needs, and how have they been responded to in the industry?
Well, I think they've been responded to very well because they've allowed more flexibility than the previous standards did, and they've allowed caterers to take advantage of any seasonal produce that's in and to look at the menus and to develop them to fit the needs of their school or their establishment, but still keep within the standards. So I think they've allowed better flexibility. So I think they've been well received. What do you think, Jeanette, because you were part of the team?
Well, we were part of the standards team. I think it's made it a lot easier, certainly for both the catering service, the industry as a whole, for the simple reason that being nutritionally analysed, you'd got to have the software. It was hugely expensive, and so everything that went with that, and you got to have a nutritionist, really, whereas we hope that I think the school food standards have made it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yes, it's much simpler to understand that you can graphically explain them. There's a tea towel, isn't there? And it's much more visible and much easier for people who perhaps aren't necessarily expert but want to be involved to understand what they need to do.
And would you say it's like alleviated that pressure to nutritionally analyse every meal? Is that
absolutely
one of the biggest benefits?
Absolutely, hasn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
Because, like Jeanette said, isn't it? Schools don't have that capacity, especially individual schools that are working towards meeting the standards. They don't have the capacity or the time to analyse every single menu, so this has allowed people to develop and to bring in better menus, Food for Life menus as well. They've allowed
it's a lot easier to download the information online with the guidance and then have all the software that would go with the other nutritional standards.
And where's the best place for caterers to get that information from?
Well, the Children's Food Trust provide a lot of information about the menus and the standards. There is a lot of information out there, food supplies like Kerrymaid, and others give recipes. So I think actually there's quite a lot of information. If you just Google a search, you'll find a lot.
And Jeanette, tell us a little bit about the New School Food Plan Alliance.
Well, we've had one meeting up to now. The next one's due in September. What we decided that there was an expert panel, and which Carrieanne you were on, and it was decided that we didn't want to lose the momentum of what has been achieved with the school food plan. So we are looking at all the actions and going back now and saying, okay, well this has been done, but is there anything more that we can do? So like today, for instance, the workforce standards has been launched, which is great, and again there were a lot of people that were part of that, but it's also bringing organisations together. The one thing for me that the school food plan did was brought the whole industry round a table. That had never been done. and everybody, we all became friends, hopefully. And so it's great that we're now looking at organisations, not individual people. So for instance, Linda, who is my co-chair, she represents Children's Food Trust, I represent Food for Life. We've got the industry, we've got LACA chair, which will be Sally Shadrack next year, and we've got the food industry as a whole that are there. We've got small schools, we've got the new chair of the small schools organisations, so they can hopefully then taper down all the information to their members. So APSI as it is another one as well. I think there's 19 of us altogether.
Fabulous. And do you foresee any changes to the school food standards or any?
No.
No, I don't.
No,
I don't.
not at all.
Not at the moment, no.
No.
Okay.
I think we've got enough to cope with everything else that's going on.
And I think they were designed to last. They were designed to endure. They weren't designed to be time limited, were they? There was something that was designed to be utilised, to continue to be flexible and to go into the future. So they didn't need to be changed in 3 years, 5 years' time. They were there to last.
It sounds like they're far less confusing and...
Absolutely.
The thing, can I just add, the thing with the nutritional standards was that if you got the menu right, it didn't mean that the children were eating them.
Exactly.
They weren't eating the meals. And the biggest thing with the nutritional standards was iron. Nobody, iron and zinc, nobody could get those really correct. So you could produce a menu, or I could produce a menu, I could produce the graph, and I could give it to whoever, and they'd go, tick, you're doing that. This takes away, the standards take away that, and so the cooks feel more empowered to do things.
And it's real,
Yes.
And when you're trying to explain what the standards are to somebody in the school, to parents, to families, it's something that's easy to understand and they can follow at home, so they can look at what they should be giving every meal and what kind of things they should be looking at, and actually that's what they were designed for, wasn't it? To be used across the whole day, for families, for schools, for everybody that was involved in that kind of environment in any way.
It makes it easier to educate the parents and the children as well.
And it's got to be easy to understand, because if you make something too complicated and technical, people are just not going to bother reading it, are they? So.
And what would you say would be your biggest tip or advice on giving a caterer and how to meet those the food-based standards?
Just read the guidance.
Yeah.
It's really
Get the
informative. Absolutely. Download that. Absolutely, isn't it? As you said, the guidance
the
is there.
breakdown's really easy to follow, but then there's much more detailed guidance that goes behind that as well, but it's not a huge overfacing document. It's easy to follow. It's written in, it's not written in complicated kind of terms.
No.
It's
everything other people can understand, can't it? It's in layman's terms, it's absolutely spot on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moving on to the other big legislation that hit around a similar time is the FIR allergen legislation, which came into play December 2014. How did this affect menu planning? Has it helped?
I think it was it was a huge thing, to actually explain, to make sure you were responding appropriately to children with special diets. And in a school environment, you're working with children who need protecting, safeguarding. It's quite different from in a commercial environment where they know what they can ask. But actually, I think our sector just hugely embraced this. They got on, it became business as usual. The key thing is that suppliers do not change their formulations and they communicate if they need to. We treat the allergen legislation as part of special diets. So we have a huge industry behind the scenes, but actually at the point of service, a child is just dealt with normally. They might have a special tray, they might have different coloured things, they might be escorted if it's a really severe need. Actually, if you get the information coming from the suppliers in an accurate way, that they understand if they've changed the formulation of the product, that they inform you, it then becomes business as usual. And I'd say this sector has just embraced this, and it has become business as usual. It's not a big deal, really.
No, it's not a big deal at all. We were glad to have this, really, to be honest, because it was something that we've been working on for many years, as more allergies have developed and more children have had problems, haven't they? The industry has been looking at this for a long time, so absolutely, as Beverly said, we've totally embraced this, and it's given us clear legislation for everybody to understand what we need to do and what we don't need to do, and safeguarding the children is paramount, isn't it?
I think also it's actually a lot easier now to get free from or special diet products from suppliers too, so they're more readily available and suppliers are more prepared with the right information, and it does make caterers' lives a lot easier if that's the case.
Yes.
I mean, it's a huge responsibility for a caterer to actually feed a child who maybe has a life-threatening response to food. So actually, the more things you can build into systems like photographs, working closely with the school, that the midday supervisor understands the child's special needs, the easier it is for the catering staff.
Because that's actually one thing we did with the Kerrymaid brand. We removed one of the allergens, so from our Kerrymaid premium baking we removed the dairy, and from what I can see it seems to have really helped yourselves in the catering industry by having like an allergen-free spread and just switching that out from other products which would have contained dairy.
And those things are important for many suppliers to do that, because across the whole of the school day you need that protection for a child.
Exactly.
And I think we have to say that actually the school meals have been doing this for years, haven't we?
Yes.
You know, I mean, it used to be the parents sent a letter in, the letter went to the hospital got in touch with the area manager and with the school cook, you know, so this has been going on for years. To us, it's not been relatively new,
no,
has it?
It's
But what it has done, I think, is it's highlighted what we do in school meals, and it's made it more transparent to parents. So parents are more confident that, you know, we are feeding the kids well.
They can trust us.
And they can trust, yes.
Yeah, they can
and that trust is a big thing. It's a big word.
So would there have had to be much internal training, or you think it was already really in play already?
Well, I think we just added on to our special diets policy, which so there were 14 more allergens to add into the policy.
Yeah.
But we had a very robust system in place already. I would imagine that applies across the board. And so it was just adding in more things to actually, but the systems and the procedures were there.
Okay, that's very interesting. So moving on to the other kind of growing movement in school food catering, which really is the Soil Association Food for Life mark. What are the real benefits to that scheme, Claire?
So Food for Life more generally looks at a school's whole approach to food. So it looks at the catering mark, looks at meals on the plates and assesses them against a certain number of criteria for food quality and provenance. And then the Food for Life award also encourages schools to get children involved in cooking, growing, linking with local farms and sharing that with the wider community as well. I mean, in terms of improving meal quality, the catering mark was really designed to do just that. So it's encouraging caterers to cook from scratch, using items that aren't heavily processed and following the nutritional or school food standards in the school's case. So it's having a real impact, and you mentioned it's growing. So we now accredit 1.6 million meals every day to our catering mark standards, and over 50% of primary schools also have the catering mark award. So it's definitely something that's working and helping caterers, because it's a framework for them to work within.
And Beverly, I was reading that 292 schools, is it, of your primary schools have the gold accreditation. Do you have any advice for some of our listeners on how you achieved that?
Well, I love the Food for Life mark, because when you're talking to parents and to school governing bodies or head teachers, I could go in and I could actually say anything, and you know, they may or may not believe me. But when you've got an external accredited system that's specific for your industry, then I don't have to sell that. I can just say we've got Girl Food for Life, and it's understood. It's not me saying it; it's an external accreditation. We went for bronze as soon as it became available a few years ago, and then we actually leapfrogged silver and went straight to gold. So I was very proud of our teams for achieving that. It is, and it really is great because it's not. It is this working through a process, and I find it so valuable because it gives us a standard to work to. It's quite clear what you have to do, and then it allows you to sell that, to build this trust that, as well as, you know, feeding children healthily and safely, actually actually what's the provenance of your food. So those three sort of baseline things. So I would advise anybody, it's really worthwhile doing it. Look at what the advice is, look at what the standards are you have to achieve, and seek advice about how to do it, and go for it, because it is a good accreditation.
And when you say seek advice, where would you recommend people?
Well, I'd go to the Soil Association.
Yeah.
They're the people to help.
The
Yeah, we've got a big
coordinators,
team.
aren't
Yeah.
they, that come out are brilliant, aren't they? Really
so
helpful.
we've got a team of regional coordinators who help caterers on the ground with implementing the standards, and we also have a team who provide training support, benchmarking, and I obviously do kind of support around the supply chains of caterers struggling to source products. We've got 170 suppliers that we now work with who can, Kerrymaid being one of them, who can support caterers. And not only does the award provide reassurance, like I said, to pupils and parents, but through the framework it's benefiting lots of local suppliers, and we know that people are interested in buying British and buying local, and the silver and gold especially are really a good framework within which to do that, and to provide kind of extra support for local economies as well.
And do you think it's standing as a good quality mark then for parents? Do they kind of understand the Food for Life catering mark?
I think they do, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, we send menu leaflets home to maybe 100,000 homes, and we put on the Gulf Food for Life and key highlights of what it actually means. And I think that there is a lot of people do think it's important about the provenance. They do like to support the local economy, and actually I think that it shows that that's what we're doing, and I do think it is popular. It's starting to be well understood, I think, and it's liked.
Yeah, I think so.
And our team also provide, again, support with marketing, and you've got access to logos and resources too as a caterer, so it's really important once you have the award to then go and tell everybody all the great things that it means, because you've worked so hard to achieve the bronze, silver or gold catering mark. Then it's about getting the message out there, and suppliers can really help with that as well. So by providing information about provenance, or what ingredients they're using, where they've come from, providing recipes perhaps. I know you work with Jeanette on some recipes to help schools, so there's lots of ways that suppliers can help as well as the catering art team to help schools tell pupils and parents what it means.
And how would you usually market it to the parents? Would it be through emails or leaflets, or do you ever invite them in to show them your product?
All of the above.
Oh,
Yeah, all of the above. We
Pictures
do all of
of
those.
those,
Yeah,
yeah.
we do all of those. Everything, every which way. Yes. we
Parents'
do.
evenings are a really good opportunity to tell and give samples and
Yeah.
kind of tell parents about where foods come from and the suppliers that you work with.
Tasters at the school gate, notices around the schools, the logo on publicity material. So yeah, all of the above really.
Okay, perfect. And how often would schools be assessed in terms of their accreditation?
So the caterer is assessed annually. It's a face-to-face inspection, so it's a rigorous process they go through. They have to show that they meet every single standard. The inspector goes through the menu, and they want to ask about how many dishes are freshly prepared, where did meat come from, fish come from, want to look at ingredient specs, and make sure everything's basically in place. So a caterer, to achieve the award, has to meet every single standard and demonstrate that they're doing so. Again, they need the help of their suppliers to do that, so the better prepared suppliers are, the easier that inspection is for the caterer. And then we've also introduced in the last 12 months every sort of 6 months a desk-based inspection, and that's based on the level of support perhaps the caterer needs after the first face-to-face inspection, and it enables us to maintain contact with the caterer and make sure that the standards are being maintained, and that if they've got any questions, it's a good opportunity for them to just ask us as well.
So can you explain that one a little bit more? The desk?
Yeah, so each caterer is assigned a certification officer when they apply for their award, and the certification officer, after the 6 months after the annual face-to-face inspection, will give the caterer a call and just want to chat through how it's going and ask for certain pieces of evidence based on what came from their inspection. So if they had non-compliances, for example, would be asking just them to follow up to make sure that anything that perhaps was flagged up at the first inspection is captured, and we make sure that they're maintaining that throughout the year, because obviously it's important that the catering art standards are maintained throughout the whole year, but it's not as rigorous in terms of the face-to-face inspection is like almost a day long, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And they come out and go through kitchens. The inspector wants to see paperwork, whereas a desk-based inspection will be a phone call and a conversation with a follow-up email with the paperwork that's required.
Perfect.
I can tell you the audit on site is very rigorous. They go through the larder and the stores with a fine-tooth comb and find all manner of things you wish they hadn't found.
And if it is the case that any non-compliance has come up, I just want to point out that caterer doesn't actually achieve their award until we've kind of seen all the information.
Yeah, that's right,
so if there is something on the day that's perhaps a bit out of the ordinary, we'll be asking for follow-up information before the caterer's awarded their award. So
Okay, perfect. The other question then I had was around budgeting. Is it, I know the typical budget you have for school food meals between say 56 and 90p on average. Is it still very attainable to get the Soil Association accreditation with a budget like that?
Well, I mean, our budget is a little higher than the lower minimum, and we can certainly achieve it from it. But actually, we budget to make sure we can achieve it because we think it's so important.
Yeah, and I would say we do that too. So yeah.
I think it's about taking, I suppose, smarter, longer choices in terms of procurement and trying to find the right suppliers.
And there is always a way,
well.
isn't there? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of support to help you with what you can do to get to where you need to be. But it is worth investing in it. It's worth getting the right quality food, because if you get the right meal, then the uptake will go up, and obviously that's what you want, isn't it? You want more children eating a healthy, nutritious meal every day. That's absolutely all we want, isn't it? Every single day, because that's what matters.
Correctly, it will drive uptake as well. So
absolutely.
Lots of the research we've done shows that actually caterers can maintain cost neutral, but it requires perhaps some thinking about menu planning, and our team provides support with that as well. So looking at the total menu and perhaps where you could put some, if you're using red tractor meat or maybe putting some organic meat on the menu, how you can balance perhaps those costs with looking at balancing the menu in other ways, or looking at the recipe formulation as well. So more high quality ingredients can be used, but perhaps like less often. So perhaps serving more vegetarian options or having a meat-free day once every other week, for example, is a good way to perhaps look at it as well.
What other kind of tips or advice would you give a caterer or listeners here today in terms of managing that budget? And I suppose, is there any tips on how to make sure that you achieve it?
I think seasonal is really important. I think that's what we've got to get back to.
Yeah.
It's also actually talking to the children as well of what they want. They're the customers, basically. And so we need to ask them. We need to include them. I think within a local authority or a private contractor, involving the cooks within the kitchens as well on budgets, so that they actually know that a budget is important. I mean, I've been into schools where the budget's gone straight through the roof, and you just think, what are you doing? In fact, the person who took over from me, I said, what's your spend? No idea. I'm thinking, well, I don't think the heads are going to be very chuffed come next April. So you've got to involve everybody within the budgets. But I think using seasonal produce is really good. As Claire's just said, you can use a less high quality meat, but less of it. That's what we did. So doing those sorts of things.
There's lots of advice and support out there. I mean, LACA have the main event. We have conference every year. We have seminars throughout the year. We have regional meetings and events across the whole country that people can come along to, can share best practice with their colleagues there. We have some great speakers that come and talk to us about lots of different elements around school food, budgeting, and how to manage things, and menus is something that does come up. And but there's lots of other things that people can learn. But while you're at these events, you can learn from your colleagues. I mean, we can sit next to somebody from Surrey or somebody from the Midlands or somewhere else. You can talk to other people and see what they've done, and there's always best practice to be shared. And LACA is a great organisation for doing that and sharing that amongst suppliers, contract caterers, local authorities, individual schools. We all share the information and we all work together. We're all here for the same thing, and that's why we're here these few days.
Fantastic, holistic organisation.
To kind of work together and to get the best practice and to learn from each other. So I think that's one of the biggest ways that you can get as much support and information about any element of the menus or whatever the service you're providing, not just the budget, but everything else as well.
So outside of the main event, you'd say the regional meetings and then the website?
And we have seminars, the website. We have lots of things that people can get involved in, don't we, Beverly? And to become a member of LACA is probably the best investment you can make, really, I think.
It's very good value for money.
It certainly is. Certainly is. Not plugging LACA. Hey ho, but it is. It absolutely is. I mean, you wouldn't be members if it wasn't so.
Exactly.
You know, and neither would any of us sitting around here. So.
Exactly. And then encouraging school meal uptake is obviously key.
Absolutely.
What would your big tips for encouraging more bums on seats and clean plates?
I just went last week to a school where the catering team had made the most amazing lunch. It was really fantastic. Anybody would have been impressed with it. But the children needed encouraging to eat. It was a lovely atmosphere, but taking platters of bread or fruit around, you can encourage the children to eat more. They want to get out and play. They want to be quick about it. The midday supervisors are hurrying them up to get the next children through. So I actually think creating a really lovely atmosphere with everybody in the dining room, particularly the midday supervisors, who can encourage the children to taste something if it's new. Once you've got the food right and the environment right, then the next key thing is really to get the midday supervisors on board to not frighten the children. There are some ghastly stories, there are some amazing stories as well, but working with all the team that are involved in the dining room and actually really, making sure the children do take the time to try something and not rush out too fast. I think that's now the biggest area where we can develop and grow this.
And I think that's why it's so important that the workforce standards have actually got a standard for midday supervisor training, because when I go out into a school and when I do a talk within a school, I will say, you are the front of house staff as far as I'm concerned. It's like being in a restaurant. They are absolutely key, because we're behind, we're behind the counter normally, and so therefore those ladies or guys as well, they are so important. A lot of them do rush, come on, hurry up. I hate it when they start to clear tables and they put them away and there's still children eating.
You wouldn't do it in a restaurant.
Would you do that in a cafe? No, you wouldn't. So, and like Beverly says, there are horror stories. I mean, I can remember one in particular, and I won't say where it is, obviously, but I actually thought she was a cardboard cutout. They never moved for an hour and 10 minutes. You felt like it was sort of going up, are you real? And she was. And arms folded as well for an hour and 10 minutes, not exactly inviting for the children to come in to start with, but you also need the head teacher and the teaching staff. It has to be the whole school. And with Food for Life, I mean, it's now 16 years since I co-founded this, and it is so important, that the catering staff feel part of the school. They feel as though they can go and talk to people, and the teaching staff are involved. So, and the head teacher, and it's great if you can get a head teacher eating actually in the dining room with the children. It's not always possible, but even if it's a teacher, if it's somebody that's actually sitting with the children,
it does make a difference.
Makes a huge.
Some of the workshops have been talking today about how that has made such a massive impact on the children, on uptake, and about children trying new things as actually if staff are in the dining room with them, and if the midday meal supervisors are engaged, because they are the key, as you say, to this working, and the staff being involved as well. If your teacher's coming in to eat, you're going to eat. You're going to want to eat.
Yeah.
The school food plan had a list of recommendations, and some of these are lovely ideas, like a birthday table, tablecloths on the table, maybe, little pots of flowers, things the children have made. The school food plan did a lot of work on how to create a nicer dining environment, and actually I think that's as important as the food, really. The food's got to be right, obviously, but the environment you eat it in is just as important.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And what about themed days? Do you ever run many of them to encourage school meal uptake?
I think most providers will have a list of themed days and things that they will do. The children love it. It's particularly valuable if you can link in with the school work on the curriculum. So, for example, World Book Day, when everybody comes in as a character and you do something from a book, and or different countries around the world, those really work well. I think it works best if you can link it into the curriculum rather than be a random something.
Yes,
because what you're trying to do is get children to come in every day. Here's a taster. Maybe they wouldn't have come in, that you get them for that day, but you want to keep them.
Exactly.
You don't really want them for one day only. You want them to become
right.
customers along the way. So linking it in with the curriculum, making it just a taster to get children to stay, those are really where it works well.
And it's also well if the catering staff are engaged with the school and working together, because like for World Book Day, when they come in dressed up themselves and get involved, and the staff feel part of the school, and it's a really great thing to do. Theme days can work really well, but if they're linked to the curriculum, as Beverly said, they do work much better than just randomly putting them in, don't they? Cause
I mean, some schools also run theme days around events with families, so it might be Father's Day, or they might ask them to bring a grandparent to school, because if you can change the mindset of the parent as well, they're more likely to then be sent for the school meals as well.
And do you think the universal infant free school meals has played into encouraging school meal uptake afterwards?
Yes, hopefully, yes.
Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, you know, it's such a benefit. It's worth a lot of money for every family. Certainly for the reception and years 5, the entitled category. That is, you know, the uptake's running very high nationally. It's exposed people to a meal that perhaps they wouldn't have had. We're hoping there's a knock-on effect into the older children, into the juniors. That's happening some places and not all. There's more capacity there, more scope to do it. But clearly it's been a great benefit for children to experience that, and been a benefit to family budgets.
Which is important, very important.
Yeah. And some of the caterers that we talked to mentioned that they're actually able to increase meal quality as well, because they can afford to buy better ingredients, because there's more children eating meals, economies of scale are better. So that's a great help if meal quality can be improved as well as driving meal uptake and getting more pupils eating meals.
And that's absolutely, that was identified in the school food plan, wasn't it, around the economies of scale, and the more children we can get to eat, the better quality food we can afford to buy. And that's what we all want, isn't it? Yeah. We want the best quality, nutritious food for every child. Exactly. We don't want anybody to miss out.
No, and on I think on the whole, it's been a really good success. I think we need evaluation on it. I think that's really important. And I also think, you know, yes, it has been good. It's not all been a bed of roses. I need to say, small schools, I think, have really struggled and are really struggling. So, you know, we need to look at that, and hopefully that's what School Food Plan Alliance will be doing.
You know, the other huge challenge was the premises to cook. You know, we just did not have the capacity. And we're doing 700 meals out of a kitchen that's probably got a 300 meal capacity. And you know, it is the buildings are a challenge. Now clearly that was different across the country, and what you ended up with, and what you inherited, and what was there as part of the service you were offering pre-Universal. But there's no doubt about it. You know, building was a challenge.
People were fine. Staff embraced it and just got on with it and did it and achieved amazing things in amazing situations, so you know, all credit to everybody that's worked through that. I'd like to see more of it really, but there we go. I'd like to see it extended and
I was going to ask, what would your hopes and aspirations for it be in the future?
Aspirations would be for it to be rolled out, but for us to have the support and the mechanisms to ensure that the facilities meet the needs moving forward.
I would really like to every school with a kitchen that it can cook on site with a lovely dining room. You know, the school population is growing, so you're not only faced with serving more children lunches in the capacity you had, but actually there are more children in school as well. So actually it's made a double whammy really in terms of capacity. It would be lovely if every school had a kitchen with a lovely dining environment. You know, nice
would be ideal. It would be lovely, because years ago all schools had kitchens, didn't they? And they gradually disappeared. But that would absolutely be, I think, all of our aspiration would for every school to have a kitchen and every child to have the opportunity to have a healthy meal every day. Yeah.
Where a school meal is done in a lovely environment with really dedicated staff and a good whole school approach towards it, it actually is more than just about the meal. It really encourages the whole school learning and how a child can achieve at its best. Because if you've got a lot of effort going into school food, then actually it means there's a lot of effort going into all of those things around the whole school day. And children really can achieve at their best in that environment. And in that scope, a school meal can really change a child's life chances. And I don't think that's too great a thing to claim for a school meal.
Absolutely.
So, it's a good thing to do more of it.
We would all agree with that, wouldn't we?
Very much, totally agree with what Beverly's just said. In fact, the Food for Life we've just finished an evaluation. It's literally just come out, and there is a connection between food and attainment. We need more work on that, more research on that, but there is more and more coming out. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Fantastic. So we're hosting this webinar at the LACA main event. What other kind of hot topics will be talked about over the weekend?
Well, if you had a programme.
No, I've read the programme.
It's Lead, Inspire and Empower is the theme of the main event. I mean, there's so many networking opportunities. There are 180 exhibitors here. So to expose yourself to all the new offerings, all the things you can learn from that, to meet with your peers, as well as to have some inspirational speakers. It really is huge bringing together of all the main players in the industry.
It is. It's the biggest event of its kind, and it's absolutely the place to be in July. That's it, isn't it? That's the place to be.
Never book your holidays.
Don't book your holidays this week. You'll just miss out. It's absolutely the key place to be because, as Beverly said, you've got everybody, manufacturers, suppliers, producers, distributors. You've got people from all walks of the catering world, all different providers. You've got every level of person coming into the exhibition, coming into the seminar. So actually it's something for everybody here, and it's absolutely what you should be coming along to, and you'll get updates on the latest trends, what's happening, what's not happening, what the future looks like, what the policies and the government are doing moving forward. I mean, it's absolutely the key place to understand what's happening in the future, and you leave on Friday feeling inspired, motivated to go out there and do it all again, and that's what you need to do, isn't it?
Exactly, it really brings everyone together. It brings your suppliers, and then you can get great tips from your colleagues, from other councils, etc.
It's really good.
It's fantastic. So just want to kind of glean from you, what do you think is the best dish that you can guarantee will get clean plates that you've experienced?
Roast dinner.
Roast dinner. I was just going to say roast dinner.
I'm going to get in first. I think we were all going to say
roast dinner is absolutely, isn't it? Do the
Food for Life, we have a roast dinner day.
National School Meal Week.
National Roast Dinner Day.
And it's in National School Meals Week now.
Now in National School Meals Week. So yeah, I mean, and that goes up and up every year.
But it is one of the most popular meals every week, isn't it?
Yes. Every child will say.
Amazingly enough, it is.
Yes.
Roast dinner.
Absolutely.
Any tips on getting the best roast?
Good quality meat.
Cook your vegetables
Cook your veg
at the last minute.
Yes,
batch cook everything, and don't cook it 3 hours previous. It's all about great quality food, cooked well, served and presented in a nice environment. You can't beat it, really.
You're at the roast dinner as well, Beverly?
Roast dinner it is, but I was thinking actually what was my favourite school dinner, and when I first began I used to love meat squares and Cornish pasty made in a tray bake, and I don't know whether that's so popular anymore, but I do think there's a lot more vegetarian and different meals coming up. A lot of schools, because of the conversation we've had, they're doing meat-free Mondays or different days, and things like mushroom stroganoff and vegetable curries, all those things are really actually quite, much more popular nowadays, and clearly you can't have roast dinner every day, so you have to be doing other things as well.
But there are some great, I think school food is great, and I would eat it every day, it's absolutely, there's some great choices out there, and some caterers doing some great ideas and recipes. You must have seen them across the whole country. Some fabulous food, isn't there?
Brilliant. So I'd just like to thank you all for being on our panel today. Is there any last piece of advice you'd like to give our listeners in terms of school food catering?
Come to the conference and learn everything, and go away feeling inspired and motivated. That's what I think.
You can come as a day delegate to the exhibitions without charge. You get the chance to see, it's the largest catering exhibition for this sector in the country, and you can feel the buzz when you walk in the hotel lobby, can't you, I think? And so, yeah, join LACA, come to the exhibition, come to the seminars, the workshops, and of course the main conference events if you can. And I think you will go away inspired, as Carrieanne said. It's on Friday afternoon, everybody leaves.
And a high. We all go on a high, don't we? Tired, but we're on a high.
I think they start planning for the next event on Saturday morning.
Yeah, 2 weeks after we have the first meeting.
Yeah,
Well, I've already booked our stand for 2017.
Well, there you go.
and I think mine would be obviously is join Food for Life. You know, go on
Absolutely.
the website, look at what you can do. You know, look how you can get involved, and you can take it wherever you want. You know, it's a framework that I hope that schools will work to, but it's not rigid.
No, it's very good.
Yeah, and mine's very similar to Jeanette's. If you're a caterer interested in improving quality of meals within a set framework, then get in touch with the Catering Mart team via our website. All our contact details are on there. And equally, if you're a supplier wanting to get in touch about how you can get support from us to help meet your customers' needs, then again, everything's on the website.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your great insight into the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.